make sure you can survive the first 90 days of SHTF. Hey everybody, this is Michael with Asymmetrical Preparedness. The first 90 days is critical. Is it any more important than longer term? Well, may or may not be. What is important about the first 90 days? Okay, a lot of things, whether it be natural disasters or other events, they tend to be short term. Now, if we go into a long-term event, surviving the first 90 days is still essential, but setting yourselves up for success now, while it's easier, is important. So what can you do to make sure you have a better chance of surviving the first 90 days? Because surviving, living, it's never a sure thing. Normal life, you can go out and about and not come home. So nothing is a sure thing. And it always depends on your situation, on your area of operations, on your living situation, on your availability for bug outs, on your availability for bugging in, a lot of things. But we're going to go over some things that will definitely help you get set up properly to survive the first 90 days, if not longer. Get these things squared away now. We're talking about fundamentals of prepping. Like I've mentioned before, what makes a spec ops, special operations operator, boots on the ground, gunslinger, whatever you want to call them, what makes them good? What makes them special? What makes special forces special? It is the complete and utter mastery of the basics, to a point that it is so boring but so second nature that frees them up to think about the bigger picture, to analyze, to think about other things, to be more aware of tactics, what's situational awareness, what's going on around them. That's what makes them good. So as preppers, if you want to be a good prepper, complete and utter mastery of the basics, the fundamentals of preparedness. Shelter is very important, right? Your house, your bug out location, your trailer, your tent, your yurt, whatever it may be. Get your primary residence squared away. Take care of small things. Keep up on maintenance, stuff like that. Shelter, though, expedient shelter. Talking about like wilderness survival type stuff. You're out, you're having to bug out, whatever it may be. Tarps are awesome. Tarps are awesome. They make it so easy to put up a shelter quickly. Depending on the time of year, you may or may not have to worry about insulation and or airflow to keep you cool. There's lots of different types of shelters. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but shelter is very important. Shelter, there are things that come in play when you're talking about shelter. One of them is security. Security is essential. You got to be able to secure your location from bad guys. I've been talking about that lately here on YouTube, assessing your vulnerabilities. But I've also been going into more depth on Patreon. Links in the description below. I have been doing more stuff there about what do you do about it. How do you mitigate your weaknesses? How do you set yourself up for success? Safety. Safety is key. Fire extinguishers, stuff like that. Make sure your spaces are safe for you to operate in. Your gas lines, your water lines, your doors are functioning properly, your windows are functioning properly, all these kind of things. Important. I know it's kind of mundane, but it's important. And yes, recently I've done videos about the security aspect. More of them on Patreon. Shelter gives you protection from the elements, whether it be heat or cold. And shelter is really good for morale. Because if you have a nice, safe, secure feeling, whether it's secure or not, place to go. Shelter from the elements is very, very good for morale. If you're out there in the woods or whatever without any kind of shelter, that can be very, that can suck. So, shelter. And you need to assess the strengths and weaknesses of your shelter, like I spoke about in the vulnerability and security assessment videos recently. Check them out over the last couple days. But yes, I mentioned Patreon, links in the description below. Check us out there. Join Team AP, be one of the cool guys. Also, please subscribe, hit the like button, share the videos, thumbs up, comment below, and there's that little heart with a thanks in it. That's a super thanks. If you feel like helping out the channel, help me have the ability to do more, get more, be more, to reach more people, to empower more people, please do so. Anyway, what is next? And this isn't necessarily in order, but it kind of is. Water. Water is essential, often overlooked by preppers. Overlooked to a degree by preppers. A lot of preppers have cases of bottled water, you know, maybe a 55-gallon drum, maybe a 35-gallon drum, maybe some 10-gallon totes, maybe even one of those 360-something gallon totes, maybe some 5-gallon water jugs, maybe whatever. Water is essential to life. We know that. I fill every container I possibly can after we use it with water. Why? Because not all of it's drinkable, right? But what do I need to do? You see around me my garden, right? I have to have the ability to water my garden at certain times a year, of course. But I also need to flush my toilets. I can fill up the back of the reservoir, flush the toilet, everything's fine. So it all doesn't have to be drinking water. It can also be bathing water. It can also, in some situations, may not be for drinking, but if you're going to cook and boil it first, maybe. Proper water filtration and or treatment. Bleach, water purification tablets, pool shock. Some of these are better than others, of course. Water filters, big Berkeys, Katadins, Life Straws, Mini Sawyers. I like Mini Sawyers because they're an absolute filter. The Life Straw is not. So for about the same price, get a Mini Sawyer. Not endorsed by them whatsoever. Also, more than just storing and stockpiling water is identifying and locating sources of water, because no matter how much water you have, you're going to have to replenish it if we're in a long-term event. And if we're like grid down type stuff where you can't just turn on the tap. Very important. Where are streams, lakes, rivers, ponds, pools, city water towers, etc.? There's a lot of sources of water. Where are springs in your area? Stuff like that. Let me see. Where am I at? Oh yeah. So, and also, first indication of anything getting worse or potentially getting really bad. Fill up everything you can. Fill up your bathtubs. Fill up your sink. Fill up your pots. Fill up your pans. Fill up everything you possibly can with water before you lose it. Very important. Let me see. Yes, in a long-term event, to a total collapse of society, without rule of law type stuff, there will be a competition for resources. If you are set up where you have resources, you'll be better off, right? Because you won't want to be out there trying to compete with others for them. You will still be competing with others for them. It's just in a defensive nature, like I talked about in the security-related videos. There's a lot to security, but we covered a lot of it in those videos. Food, of course. Food is important. Stock, grow, raise, gather, forage, all those kind of things. Hunt, fish, trap, snare. A lot of ways to get food. A lot of people don't realize this, but when they're walking around, if they're anywhere where there's vegetation, there's probably food. You're probably surrounded by food and you didn't even know it. This is why foraging is very important. Will foraging alone keep you alive? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how good you are. Depends on where you are. What your area of operations is like. Do you live in the desert? Do you live in the Pacific Northwest? If you're here in Western Washington and you go out into the woods and starve, I'm sorry, because you're surrounded by food. Yeah, think about calories. When you're out foraging, it doesn't have a lot of calories. But there are things called guerrilla gardens, victory gardens, crisis gardens, whatever, where you plant stuff everywhere, anywhere you can, either on your property or just out and about. Drew some artichokes right, let me see, are they on screen? I believe you can see them right there. Great source of protein. They're tubers, just like potatoes. Potatoes are great too. I'm going to have potatoes coming to my ears. I have a lot of potatoes. You see a bunch of them right there. There's also a huge other raised bed right here. Well, yeah, you can see them on film right there. There's also 14 containers of them over there. I already harvested 3 of the containers and got a 5-gallon bucket full of potatoes. And then I replanted them. Plus I have 2 raised beds of potatoes, another area of potatoes over there, another area of potatoes over there. Yes, potatoes, potatoes, potatoes. And drew some artichokes going there and off in our little, next to the road over there. Ease of use when you're thinking about foods, not just beans and rice. Canned goods, very important. You don't want to have to cook, soak, all this stuff, all your food, all the time. Sometimes you need it just to be quick. Make it easier on yourself when things are more difficult. Things are easier now, so start preparing. You can cook up meals, can them, home can them, jar them properly, put them in food storage, store them properly so the jars don't break, of course. You can buy canned goods from the store, metal cans, you know. Peanut butters, jams, canned meats, freeze-dried stuff. There's a variety. Make sure you have a variety, because you always don't want to have to break out the big pot, make a pot of rice, a pot of beans, and stuff like that. You may need quick and easy, especially if you're out patrolling, if you're on the move. You need rations, emergency bars, stuff like that. And I haven't mentioned it in a long time. Part of it, okay, freeze-dried, right? So if you want to go that route, I can save you some money on a good product. Ready Hour food buckets from My Patriot Supply. Links in the description below. The website is preparewithap.com. I can save you some money if you're getting it anyway. I'm not saying go out there and just buy a bunch of stuff, because you need to have variety. But if you want to go that route, it's good quality stuff, good caloric value, good nutrient value, and it's just good stuff. We use it, we store it, it's an essential part of our food storage. So check that out, preparewithap.com. And yes, I'm affiliated with them, obviously. But I only affiliate myself with companies I believe in. I'm not going to try to get you to go a direction of BS. I don't play that game. Next is medical. You got to think about the fact that there won't be any EMS, any emergency medical services. What does that mean? That means a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people. A lot of people are going to die from what we think of nowadays as a minor little nothing issue. Infection, disease, colds, etc. If you feel you have enough medical supplies, you probably don't. Talked about this recently on Patreon also, medical stuff. It's very important. And the training and skills to go along with it. A lot of preppers maybe have good, decent medical supply stockpile, but they don't necessarily have the advanced or even the basic training to support using those items. I highly recommend, that's one of these essential items, that you need medical training. Everybody needs at least basic medical training. It's very important. First aid, TCCC, advanced stuff if you can. If you got people in your group that are medical, cross-train. Because what happens if the medical person dies? Or disappears, or gets lost, whatever. You gotta have more than one person with the knowledge. Supplies, your meds, prescription meds, over-the-counter meds, antibiotics. Very important. Broad spectrum antibiotics. You can get them at feed stores, pet stores, a lot of times, right there over the counter. Do it. Next thing I want to go do is to survive the first 90 days and or any length of time. You need to make yourself a hard target. Talked about that in the security videos and on Patreon. Those Patreon videos. Making yourself a hard target doesn't necessarily mean having what looks like a big fortress around you. It could be gray man approach to security. You may be in a situation where you want it to be high visibility. You may not. Like I said before, it depends on a lot of stuff. Somebody out there tells you, you got to do this, and this. They're full of BS. Seriously. Because they don't know what situation you're in, what area of operations you're in. So much information they should gather before saying anything to you whatsoever. But anyway. Tools, training, and equipment to make yourself a hard target. Here again, Patreon, talked about it there. Comms. Comms is very important. You need to gather intel. You need to know what's going on out in the world. Even if you don't have a ham radio license, get ham radios. You can still listen. And if the whole world falls apart and there's nobody going around enforcing laws, well, then you could probably talk too. I seriously doubt if the whole society collapses and there's no EMS, there's no fire, there's no rescue, there's no law enforcement, there's nothing out there. Nobody's going to care if you're talking on a ham radio. FRS, GMRS, CB radio, note drops. And these are, yes, passive listening, but you can also, it's very important to have a good comm plan set up for your group. And not just written down on paper, but practiced. Know how to get a hold of each other. Know rally points, know gathering points, know where the note drops are. Know how to get a hold of each other if the grid goes down or an EMP happens and all your cell phones are fried. That's what we prepare for. We prepare for eventualities, things that might happen. Proactive, not reactive. Remember, redundancy in comms is very important. You can't just have one source, just like prepping. You can't just have beans and rice for food. Well, I don't know. Some people may be able to. You can live on it, sure. Wouldn't be very fun. You get tired of it. But yeah, it'll keep you alive. But redundancy is very important. Just like having transportation. It's not really one of the topics I was going to go into, but say you have a truck or a car. Do you have a bicycle for backup? Do you have a motorcycle for backup? A scooter for backup? A horse for a backup? Yes, we all have 2 feet. Well, not all of us. Sorry. Some people don't. And some people are in wheelchairs or have other things that affect them. And that really sucks. Because a lot of things may be more difficult for them. Here's a note. If you're looking at groups and forming groups, do not, please, do not disregard somebody due to their age and or disabilities. Because don't disregard them right off the bat. Don't disregard them for that reason. You may disregard them for other reasons, but they could have wisdom and knowledge that will help you immensely. Please. Give everybody a chance, no matter their age, their physical ability, their ethnicity, their gender, the 2 genders, male and female, the only 2. I probably just offended somebody, but you know what? I don't care. That's how God made it. God made men, God made women. Period. Sorry, that's a side tangent. Anyway. Take this stuff seriously. Prepare the best you can. We will hopefully get through whatever comes. But make it fun. Enjoy the process. Don't get overwhelmed. Have a wonderful day. And blessings to you and yours.